Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Kaleidocast episode 50. Yes, that's right, 50. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis.
50 episodes, chaps.
It feels it.
Half a century.
That's a lot. It feels like we've been podcasting for half a century, I tell you.
That was just the last session.
Really
the session that shall not be named.
God almighty. Yeah, do you know what? Let's not try and do 2 casts in a night from now on, boys.
No, I thought it was madness at the time.
It did not go well.
To give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, we tried to record 2 episodes in one evening, one after the other, because we had so much to talk about. And we got about halfway through the second podcast, realised we didn't have enough time, and so just kept talking faster and faster and faster until we even did the questions, and the questions became like one-word answers. Do you like this game? Yes. What do you think about this? Don't know.
Does it have a weakness? Yes. Can you elaborate? No.
So we scratched that one, and we're going to have a more relaxed session this evening.
So settle in.
So if you're listening, just sit back, take it easy, put your feet up on the desk. It's time for some more beautiful board gaming podcasting. What's the right description?
Beautiful.
Magic.
Well, that rules
Magic,
us out.
That's the word I'm looking for. So why don't we start with the news?
The news.
It's time for the news.
So, first up, in very local Polyhedron Collider news, Steve has recently recovered from a nasty bout of dysentery.
Or galloping knob rot, as it's affectionately known.
I think that's something else, Andy.
That was one hell of a week. Yeah, I had, I think I had the Strigella virus, which is a form of gastroenteritis.
Oh, nice.
Which basically meant I spent about a week making sure I was always within 20 paces of the nearest bathroom.
Nice.
Lovely. Hope you're not eating your breakfast while you're listening to this, by the way.
I had gastroenteritis at uni. I lost 2 stone. Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
It was a lot, because... Yeah, the thing is, I was not the portly gentleman I am these days either. So 2 stone back then was about a quarter of my body weight.
Jesus.
Yeah, I couldn't shift that. It was horrible. Let's just say that both ends were busy.
Oh dear. Cut that bit. So the good news is that Steve's better. That's right, Steve, isn't it?
It is. I'm much better.
Good.
Do you know what the really bad thing about this was? I had a game delivered to work. And I couldn't go pick it up. And I knew it was there because work phoned me up and said, "You've had a package delivered. It's probably another board game."
Because everything you get delivered is a board game, right?
99% of the stuff I get delivered to work, yes.
Statistically, there's a high chance.
About the same for me.
Yes.
It's, yeah. I got another package, Andy. Yeah. Is it a board game, Andy? Yeah. Well, actually, the last few have been expansions. Because, of course, they
Still
have.
board games, though, right?
Oh, totally, yeah. Fallout. What else did I have delivered recently? Oh, I got the new Stonemaier game. Not played it yet.
Between 2 castles of Mad King Lungwig Celebrity Strictly Special on Ice.
What?
Yes, that's the chap. So I shall be giving that a go at some point when I can muster 7 people in the same space.
That's quite a lot of players.
It is, yeah. I have Between Two Cities, so it's not a big stretch from there, although there are a few differences. But it does have a very sexy insert. So it's going to be on Andy's insert of choice, a contender for 2018.
The mind boggles.
Prestigious award.
We've been over sexy inserts, but we haven't mentioned the glittery butt plug for a while.
Oh!
Oh dear.
And hopefully we never will again.
Of course it's going to come up again.
As it were.
So speaking of your board gaming collection, you've got to move it soon, haven't you?
Yes, that is not an activity to which I am looking forward. I looked at it last night because I've started obviously packing up because I'm supposed to be getting the keys to the place on this Friday, actually the 9th. So yeah, my house is a bit of pandemonium at the moment. There are boxes everywhere. and I've started emptying cupboards, as you do. And I looked at my board game collection last night and tried to fit it into a fairly large cardboard, obviously not all of it, some of it into a large cardboard box. And I managed to fit 5 games into one big box. And I thought, we're going to need a bigger box. I sort of worked out that I'm probably going to need, at that kind of rate of fill, I'm going to need about 25 boxes. So I gave that up as a bad job.
You've got to be careful with board games. There's a lot of cardboard in them. They can be heavy.
Exactly. So
Couldn't
I think
you
I'm
just,
going to do it
rather than
piecemeal.
putting the boxes in boxes, couldn't you just put all of the board games like in the car, just stack them like Tetris sort of style?
I think I might end up doing that, or at least some form of it, because we do have the luxury of being able to move between now and the end of November. So we've got about 3 weeks to move all of this stuff, so it doesn't have to be done in one go. So I can just sort of every couple of nights just take a few about 10 or 15 board games in each trip, and over the course of a fortnight, I might just be able to move it. So we'll see how that goes. And I was talking to Frank West the other day actually about this, because he's about to move house as well. And he says, "Can you let me know how it goes so I can judge the quality of your move technique and see if he can employ it himself."
Nice.
So has he got the entire City of Games con board game library? Because I know he bought all the games for that con. So are they his personal games, or are they in his office? Because that was about 6 Kallax's worth of games.
He doesn't actually use. Yeah, he was talking about his structure as well. He uses Billy's rather than Kallax's, whatever the hell they are. And he showed me
Controversial.
a picture. And one of them is it? Okay, he finds them superior in many ways.
Steve waving in the background there at a local Billy bookcase for the listeners.
And he told me how many things he backs on Kickstarter. And if you think I've got a problem, you talk to Frank. It is, and
well,
I'm
strictly
not joking.
speaking, he hasn't got a problem. He's a professional.
Well, I'm a professional, just not at board games.
Are you?
Yeah, questionable. But I mean, by an order of magnitude, he backs more than I do. But as you say, he does have a motivation to do it. So yes, he's got a bit of a problem. The thing is, his place is nowhere near as big as the place I'm moving to, so that'll be fun. Anyway,
Nice.
We digress, as per. So yes, I am moving house soon, so there may be a slight delay or my complete absence on the next podcast. You can only hope.
Bum, bum, ba.
Steve and Jon duet special.
We shall see. It depends on how quickly my internet moves.
The best bits of the podcast, then.
I mean,
Stop
we do
fighting,
Islands
okay?
in the Stream together.
We could do. We could do it in person, like link arms round a beer.
Ew.
Romantic podcast for 2.
Fine. If that's the way it is, I'll go and do my own.
Don't leave us.
I'll do my own podcast with blackjack and hookers.
Yes! I'll sit with a smoking jacket and a pipe and a glass of brandy.
Oh, you've just spoilt the illusion. I keep telling everyone that you turn up to the podcast with a smoking jacket and a pipe and a glass of brandy.
To be
I
fair,
told everyone you got this
He's
massive
wearing them
leather
now.
wingback chair.
well, I do. Kind of.
There you go.
Look. Here is my pipe.
And now he's smoking it. Oh dear.
Classy.
So, that's your news. My news is I've actually played some board games, but we'll get to that later.
Good grief. That needs a fanfare or something.
There it goes. So, in wider news, what else has been happening in the board gaming community and general ambience?
Ambiance.
Well, I'm running out of words, all right? It's been a very, very long day today. The fact that I'm even sat here in front of a microphone is somewhat of a miracle, because there was a part of me that just thought, pub?
There's a part of me that thinks that every day, John.
At about 9 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah, exactly, yes. You see your inbox and you go, this.
No, I'm not going to adult today. I'm out. So, yes, news. We were asked to give a shout out to a charity event. So this is a 24-hour RPG session. If you go to 24hour-rpg.fyi, You can see this. It's bonkers. I mean, I like D&D, but I think even I would struggle to play for 24 hours.
That sounds awesome.
And it's for a good charity, for the charity of Mind. That's pretty good going.
Yes. Mind's good. We like Mind. I just imagine Arrakis for 24 hours. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be... No, there is a limit to how much Arrakis I can take.
4
It's
minutes,
small.
isn't it?
It's a small amount.
We barely last 2.5 hours.
I'd probably die in about 2.
So bidding is now closed to be one of the players, but I think you can still donate to it if you're interested in supporting Mind, which is a very worthwhile charity. Give it a look if you've got some free minutes.
And some free money.
And some free money, or some non-free money. Just it's a good charity. It's worth investing in. Matthias Kramer and the board gaming publishing house Funtails are going to publish the sequel to the successful Glen on Kickstarter at the beginning of 2019.
So have either of you played the original Glenmore?
No. I've never even heard of it.
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it. And the reason I posted this, pushed this in towards Jon, is this was actually sent to us by, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong because I always get German names wrong, from Niles, who me and Andy both played Crisis with at the UK Games Expo a while back.
We did. We liked Crisis. We still like Crisis.
We still like. I haven't played that in ages. Actually, I need to get that out of the box.
No, I was looking at that the other day, actually thinking, yeah, I need to play that. I should take it along. I bloody well like it. I mean, I should because I've backed the expansion for it. So,
Niles is one of the founders of the company which are bringing this updated version out.
Okay.
So it is. I thought this might be up Andy's street as well, because it sounds a little bit like Clans of Caledonia in its theme. Because you're making goods, including whiskey, and selling them to various markets. And it looks really, really Euro-y. As in, it looks drier than, well, nowhere in Scotland because it rains all the bloody time. So,
drier than Spike Milligan.
So I thought I'd bring this to your attention, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Apparently the sequel will feature all new artwork, high quality materials and smoother gameplay. So if the first one was good, then this one's going to be better.
Glenmore, or Glenmore 2, Glen even more.
Glenmora.
Glenmora, yes. Good God. I'm sure that's a whiskey.
Glenmora.
Yes,
like
I'm really
some
sure.
Japanese knockoff.
It's definitely the usual response when I am drinking whiskey. I'll have more.
Is that one of the ones you get in Lidl?
Do you know what? I've got a couple of Lidl whiskies, and they're actually pretty bloody good.
Is it the little ones or the Aldi ones? Actually, because the little ones are no, I'm going to get this wrong. The little ones are good. The Aldi ones are horrible.
I don't know. They were presents, but they're all right.
Because is it single malt or a blend?
No, they're single malts. One's an 18, the others are 24.
That's the little. That's the little ones.
Yes, they're very good actually. To be fair,
the Aldi ones are all blends, and when you taste them on their own, they taste nice, and then you have another whiskey afterwards, and kind of go, "Oh, actually, no, they're vile."
Yes. I have that with some beers. You start off on the good one, go to the cheaper one. You think, yeah, I can't pay £6 a pint all night. And you go, do you know what? I'm going to pay £6 a pint all night. But no, I can't back another Kickstarter. I just backed another one today, you bastards.
What have you backed today, Lewis?
What's it called? Barrage. And I blame Chewy for that. He pointed that at me today, and I looked at it and went, oh my God, that just looks perfect. Electro, punk, Euro, very pretty. Oh, God. So I cracked.
To put this into context, when was the last time before yesterday that you backed a Kickstarter project, Andy?
The day before.
And when was the last time before that?
Last week, I think.
And the time before that?
The Deep Madness expansion. The time before that was about a month ago, I think. I think that was Everdell. That was Everbrook. Pearlbrook, that's it. Everdell's expansion. Which happens to include Everdell as well.
The reason I say this, because what did you back yesterday, Andy?
I can't remember. Oh, Pipeline.
I guess you can't remember. It's the next bullet point on the notes.
I just realised that, yes. Look, I've not had enough to drink yet. I'm still, in work mode where I just try to blank everything. But no, yes. All right, smart ass.
Speaking of Pipeline, Pipeline's live on Kickstarter now.
Yes, it was. I backed that 34 minutes after it went live. I was talking to Rory and Steve at the same time, and Rory just piped up and said, "What's going on? It's 12 minutes past 3 and Andy hasn't backed Pipeline. What's going on?"
Click.
Yes. So I had a look and went, "No!" All right then.
It did say it's not a worker placement, though, I read.
Isn't it?
Yep. It says on the Kickstarter campaign bit, it says, by the way, this isn't a worker placement game. The meeples are just there to track certain bits of the turns.
That doesn't matter. Still looks pretty good.
But did you hear the fear in his voice for a moment there?
It wasn't fear, it was just surprise. I have plenty of games that aren't worker placement.
Surprise and alarm.
Alarm, yeah, fear. We fear change. No, it doesn't have workers. No, how can I cope? The stupid thing is, I am shite at worker placement games. I really like them, but I'm fucking awful at them.
We can't all be good at everything, right?
Or indeed anything in my case.
Aren't you just bad at every game?
No, because I frequently beat you, Tudor, you cheeky shit.
It's all relative.
I'm actually quite good at either social deduction or hidden information games. Things like Battlestar. I'm usually pretty good at, because I just act like a dick and it's really hard to tell whether I'm being genuine or not.
Because you're so disingenuine all the time.
Exactly, you see?
Because he acts like a dick all the time. That's
See?
what it is.
Hard to read that way. You just play in character and like, are you being genuinely dickish? Artificially dickish? Flush him.
But you can be genuinely dickish, so...
But in the game or not, there's the question. But anyway, Pipeline is now live as of the 7th? 7th? No, 6th
we mentioned
of November,
it.
So.
We mentioned it in the last podcast. Went into a bit of detail on it, and I think it looks like fun. I'm tempted.
It looks heavy, but I'm tempted as well, and it's less than 40 quid at the moment as well.
Yeah, that makes me more tempted.
Which is kind of like, that's punt level of money, that is, I'm also looking at the Everrain, and that's like close to 100 quid, and that's more kind of, I shall carefully consider this, whereas Pipeline's hitting that, I might take a punt on it button.
Wow, how middle class is that? £40 punt territory. Well, to be fair, compared to the price of board games these days, it really is punt territory. That's kind of entry level, isn't it? It's like, I'll just buy a cheap game. That'll be 50 quid. Yeah. Jesus Christ!
It's no Game of Trains.
It's not.
Board games can cost £12. Just saying.
They can, but not if you want meeples.
So, speaking of cheap board games or RPGs, have you guys heard of something called An Ogre and His Cake?
No.
No? Are you talking about me?
Not directly. Only in the sense that it requires a DM. So
it involves me then.
So An Ogre and a Cake is an introductory 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure built for and tested by kids. So basically, it's kind of like a kid-friendly version. Everything's simplified a little bit. The character sheets are simpler. The story is about basically an ogre who steals a birthday cake at someone's birthday party, and about the kids going on an adventure to try and rescue the birthday cake.
Okay.
That sounds quite fun, actually.
So that's already out, and in fact, I've bought it, and I was considering trying to run it this weekend for some friends of ours that are coming to visit. Although it does say ages 8 to 12, I think it was, and the young man in question is 6. So maybe they're going to need a little bit of help with some bits. I was going to read through it the next couple of days and see whether it could be done.
You're going to pop your DMing cherry there then, John?
Yep.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I hope they ruin it for you. Not in a horrible way, just in the sense that they'll give the DM a hard time.
In the sense that every player does to their
yes,
DM.
Yes, exactly, yes. I hope
and their kids, so that's almost certain.
Yes.
Here's the main quest line. Here's the giant neon sign pointing towards neon quest line. Oh, right, I'm just going to follow this stone that's over here in the corner.
The DM mentioned it. It must be important.
I suspect that kids are easier to lead down a specific path, but we'll see. Anyway, the reason I mention this is because there is going to be a sequel. So the creator mentioned on the chat where this is sold on dmsguild.com that they basically launched the project as of the 28th of October. So I don't think it's going to be coming out anytime soon, but you can certainly get the first one now, and the other one will be coming out in the distant, well, not too distant future, hopefully.
Sounds quite interesting, actually. It does sound kind of fun.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes. I wonder if someone could do Jack and the Beanstalk and something like that. Turn a lot of fairy tales into D&D adventures. How cool would they be?
Yeah, totally could. I've thought about it several times trying to run D&D sessions for the kids across the road, and then realised that, well, they're quite young, and if you're sending them, all sorts of nasty monsters and tricky puzzles and all the rest of it. I mean, also some of the guys that we play with struggle with the character sheet, so if there's a simplified kids version, that might be preferable. True. Anyway, yeah, check it out. At least check out the first one and keep your eyes peeled for the second.
An ogre and his cake. Okay.
Ogre and his cake, that's it. In fact, one of the chaps at work has downloaded it, bought it, and played it with I think she's 9, and she seemed to really enjoy it.
Oh, we have another D&D'er at work?
Yeah, John.
Medley?
No, that works for me.
Oh, okay. Excellent. I had no idea.
There you
we
go.
Should hook him.
He and his wife are both avid D&D players. She is another DM.
Wow, is that why you hired him?
No.
Can you write software? Actually, more importantly, can you play D&D? Right, you're in.
You get a good vibe about people when they're good problem solvers. They're often good board gamers, good RPGers.
It's probably true, actually, yes.
So that concludes the news for this week, other than our standard, now regular Wednesday news feeds, which have taken out a lot of the items that I'd normally store up for these things.
You can always repeat them, John.
True, but I haven't had enough time to prepare to strip them out of one and put them into this one, so that's it for the news.
That's the sound of a fourth wall shattering just there.
Let's talk about some games, boys.
We should
yes. I've been playing a lot. I think we all have been playing a lot recently to make a change.
Quite a productive couple of weeks, actually, yeah.
Yes.
Who wants to go first, then?
Well, go on. You've mentioned already a game what you've been waiting on for a week.
Yes. Shall I mention Arkham Horror, then, shall I?
Arkham Horror. Yes.
So, Arkham Horror, 3rd edition. Now, this is a little bit of a first impressions. I can imagine I will be discussing this in more detail in a later podcast. I have a funny feeling, as a slight hint of what's to come, I may be mentioning this a few more times. So this is the latest version of the Arkham Horror board game, which is the 3rd edition. And I'm going to be cheeky and say, really, it's the 4th edition, because Eldritch Horror was effectively Arkham Horror 3rd edition, in my view. However, it's quite different, but at the same time familiar. So whereas Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror had a common board, and you would pick an ancient one, which would be the basically the end game boss.
Mm-hmm.
And in Eldritch Horror, you also replaced some of the decks with themed decks for this ancient one. Arkham Horror 3rd edition actually has scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So you pick a scenario, and this scenario will give you a board layout, because it's a modular board, a little bit like Descent or some of those modular dungeon crawlers you've seen about, which gives you a slightly different layout of Arkham each time. And then you've got a series of decks which will be used for that scenario only. So it's really much more kind of concentrated thematic. I should probably say I've only played the first scenario. I've played it twice, and I've lost horribly both times.
Well done. Excellent.
Well, that sounds about standard then.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did worse on my second attempt than I did on my first attempt, because I thought, right, second attempt, I've got this. No, I have not.
You just found several ways not to do it.
Yeah. So it is similar in its mechanics to the Arkham Horror LCG, which I don't think either of you have played,
No.
and to Fallout board game, which I know both of you have played.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the way in which you progress the story is you'll have a series of cards which will be numbered, similar to Fallout, and the scenario will say open Codex card 5. So you take Codex card 5 out the deck. That will give you some special rules, and might say take cards 7 and 8 out the deck, which will give you more things that will happen. Then there'll be conditions which are triggered. So in the opening scenario, it'll say, like, if you get 3 clues on this on the scenario card, then go and retrieve card 4 from the deck. But if you get 7 Doom card tokens on the card, go retrieve card 9. And basically, that's similar to how the Arkham Horror LCG works. It's got this kind of branching storyline.
Okay.
And it's got an index deck similar to what you see in Fallout, where you've got this deck of cards which are all numbered. And so a little bit like a choose your own adventure, everything you do will kind of take you to a new branch. But rather than it being a big deck with lots of choices that you get in Fallout, it's much more focused. Like in a game, in the first scenario, you will only reveal about 5 of these cards.
Oh, right. So
Okay.
it's quite tight then.
Yeah. And in that way, it's closer to the Arkham Horror LCG than it is to Fallout, basically. But there's options there. You can see this deck is quite large, and so you can see that there are options that this will expand over time.
With dreaded certainty.
With dreaded certainty, yes. I would say as the game is as is right now, it's quite tight as well. I've played it solo and I've played it twice. And as I said, I've lost both times. First time I played it in about 2 hours, and the second time I played it in about an hour and a half. And that was taking 2 characters through.
Okay. Is that the sort of thing that will speed up with more plays, or do you think?
Well, I was quite impressed with that speed, because you'd be lucky to play the Arkham Horror 2nd Edition or Eldritch Horror in 3 hours.
True.
And I played in about an hour and a half and 2 hours. I actually think you couldn't go much faster than what I was doing, to be fair. I think I got it nailed down just right, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
So how many players will it do?
It's 1 to 6.
Oh, right. So quite a few. Not the usual sort of 4 or 5 as the Mansions games have been.
Not quite as many as the original Arkham and Eldritch, though, because Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror can both go up to 8 players.
Bloody hell.
I highly recommend not playing them with 8 players.
I was about to say, you'd be there for a fortnight doing that.
Yeah, it takes a long time. I think they both the original Arkham and Eldritch work better with 4, because with 4 players you get a variety of characters, which means you can all do different tasks. But at the same time, it's not getting overbearing. And Eldritch also had this weird thing where the game was harder if you had an odd number of players.
Oh, really?
That's weird.
The difficulty, I think it was Eldritch, the difficulty was based on a number of players, but it went in bands. The difficulty is 1 to 2 players, 3 to 4 players, 5 to 6 players.
Right. Sure, got you. Yeah, there's a few games that do that with that I've got that you're thinking, hang on a minute. Yeah. Okay, so is the overall feel like the 2nd edition that you've got?
It is. It's got the similar kind of concept, John. You've got the similar kind of idea of you're doing the 2 actions like you do in Arkham and Eldritch. So, moving around, fighting monsters. The way monsters work is, again, much closer to the Arkham Horror LCG.
Right.
Because you engage with monsters. So the monsters come off the table and kind of go onto your character sheet, which means they're engaged with you and will attack you every round.
Oh.
So in that way, managing the monsters feels different. And the weird thing is the monsters in this game are cards.
Okay.
And in every other game, they've been cardboard tokens. And I don't know why, but I don't like the cards. I'm so used to having that chunky cardboard token on the board to represent the monster, and it doesn't feel like it's got as much presence with the card. It's a really stupid thing, I know, but...
No, I think I know what you mean, because with a card, they're almost easily overlooked, because you either think it's part of your hand, or it's part of a deck, or it's just a random effect lying around, whereas if there's a token on a board, you're like, oh, I need to pay attention to that because it's on the board. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
But the other thing as well is the cards have got a black. The monster cards are black with a piece of black around with a picture of the monster in, and the board is Arkham at night, so it's also black. So it's getting like that Red Dwarf sketch, isn't it? The problem with black holes is their predominant feature is they're black.
Why didn't we see it?
About deep space is it's also black.
So how are you supposed to see them?
So when you scan the board, they're not as obvious to spot as they were if they were tokens. It's a really minor complaint, but there you go. My other complaint is it feels really bloody difficult because not only do you have to gain the clues by completing challenges on the board, you've then got to pass a test to move that clue token from your character sheet onto the scenario sheet.
Oh.
So it can feel a little bit like, I think the first game I managed to get 3 clue tokens onto the sheet. My second game I got 1.
Ooh.
1 bloody clue token.
Blimey.
So is it on a par with, say, Mansions of Madness in terms of difficulty, or?
I think it's on a par with all the Arkham games. It's as difficult as the Arkham games are. I feel it's more difficult, but none of those games are easy.
God, no. I've actually been playing Mansions of Madness over the last week or so, sort of on and off. And the good thing is because you can save it in the app, you can just kind of come back to it. I've just left it set up as I got to the end of the night having done 3 hours of packing and thought, I've had enough. I'm going to wander around and discover a cosmic monstrosity for an hour or so. So we do, and you have to sort of 2 or 3 turns in an hour and get through it. And I was doing one of the Streets of Arkham episodes, and I won't say which one because I don't want to ruin it for everyone. But I got through, and it's in a couple of stages, basically. You have one stage, and it says clear the board, and then you go to a different bit, and things happen. And it's a bit of a mystery. And you go through, you pick up all the clues and all this sort of stuff, and at one point, you have to make a decision as to what you think happened, and you have to say, right, are you sure? Yes! Ha! You got it wrong! You f***ed it all up, you got to start again. 4 hours into the bloody game. I'm like, God damn it. So I thought, bollocks to it, I'm putting it away.
You should have taken that key on level 2.
Oh, and I couldn't be arsed.
Oh, that reminds me of Right, this isn't on the show list. I played a god-awful game this week. I played 221B Baker Street.
I have that!
You played this?
I have it!
Oh,
I've had it for years and years and
really?
years. Yeah.
Oh, God, it's awful.
It could be improved.
Yeah, mainly with lighter fluid and petrol.
Wasn't that one that Grogan was involved in some way?
No, that's Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Yes, I have that as well.
But didn't he say it was like Baker Street?
No, 221B Baker Street is basically Cluedo, or Clue if you're an American listener, and a crossword puzzle. It's Cluedo and a crossword puzzle.
I think that's unfair. Now, admittedly, I haven't played it for about 20-odd years. It's still on my shelf, I still have it, but I haven't played it, because I know it's roll and move, and I keep looking at it going,
No, you're right, leave it. It's roll and move, so you've got to go around the board and visit all these places in London. And every time you go visit a place in London, you have to go to a numbered item in the book, which gives you a clue. Now, some of the clues are actual genuine kind of murder clues, like Mr. Jones had rust underneath his fingernails. Ooh, okay. But then other ones are like, my first name, it rhymes with Bell. Or it's I can't remember the bloody clue now, but it's like a crossword puzzle clue. And all you basically do is you've got to go around and randomly go to these places, because the places where the clues are have absolutely no relevance to the scenario itself, until you think you've got enough clues to work out the murderer, the weapon, and then 2 or 3 other questions which are dependent on the scenario.
And then you get it wrong.
Yeah, and then you get it wrong, and the entire game's over.
Yeah. Do you know what? Now you made me think about it. I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. It was a bit shit, and I played that when I was like 14. Because I do remember the randomness of the clues, and thinking if you get the wrong clues, you go to the wrong place. There's nothing you can do because you don't control which clue it gives you, and you basically just got to. Yeah, I remember now, and I think I remember playing sort of 2 of the murder mysteries and not playing it ever again. Maybe I should donate it to a charity shop.
Me and another player got the solution at the same time. We could both tell, but we were both the same position on the other corner of the board. Followed by 6 turns of us both rolling dice to see who could get to 221B Baker Street first and hand in the solution.
Sounds remarkably like Talisman. Oh, I can't believe I've just said that.
It's completely different.
No, you get to the end of the game, you roll a d6 and see if you can roll a 6. It's the same thing.
It's not. It's completely different because Talisman's fun in the middle.
No, it isn't.
You get to dick over one another for a few hours. So anyway, Arkham Horror 3rd edition. Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to playing it again. I'm really looking forward to the chance to play it with you two guys to see how badly the three of us can cock it up together.
Massively.
My only real criticism, apart from the monster tokens that I've mentioned, is yet again they have not put difficulty levels on anything. I would really love if Fantasy Flight Games would start saying, like, Azeroth is the easy game, Cthulhu is the very hard game.
Like they do in...
Like they do in Mansions of Madness, yeah.
Exactly,
Mansions of Madness, you've got a difficulty set in each Vengeance.
Or do you know what? I found that to be complete bobbins. Well, apart from Escape from Innsmouth, which is definitely worthy of its 5-star rating.
Have you finished that yet?
Nope. I played it 4 times, and I still die in a fire.
Take it as a sign, Andy. Maybe it's one that you're not supposed to finish. It's basically, your classic horror film. No one's supposed to make out alive.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely true to form.
It's just a harrowing, intense couple of hours before everyone is brutally murdered.
It's a horrible scenario. It's really good. It really is. The tension is fantastic, but by God, it's punishing. Anyway, speaking of punishing games and Lovecraft, coincidentally, although not in 1930s London or Arkham or wherever the hell it is, Arkham, I shall transport you through the cosmos to the bottom of the sea.
Under the sea. Under the sea.
There's plenty of that. To the mining facility of Kadath, however you want to pronounce it, and the near future, I think, facility, and the realm of Deep Madness, which is another Lovecraftian-based game, not quite as true to the novels as Arkham, which is obviously is a little more than inspired, which Deep Madness claims to be. Although the expansion, one of the expansions is called Rise of Dagon, so inspired is probably a slightly loose term.
Inspired.
Copied.
I'd argue that actually the Arkham Horror games have very little in common with the actual...
That's true.
H.P. Lovecraft stories, to be fair.
That's true, it's true. Or at least the monsters in it seem to be a little closer to the novels. But anyway, we digress. Deep Madness has recently fulfilled on Kickstarter. I think it's still shipping around the world to various locations, but I got mine about a month ago, give or take. And in that time, I have played it 7 times.
This is why we don't play D&D anymore. It upsets me.
That is not true.
It is true. Every time I message you on a Saturday or a Sunday, you say, I'd love to, but I need to go packing because I'm going to move house soon. And then there's like various posts on Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of things of you playing Deep Madness for about the next 4 or 5 hours. At which point I'm just sat there like, you bastard, you're not doing it at all, are you?
Well, that's because I got bored of packing and decided, I'll carry on playing. Because I've had it set
I get
up.
it. So back to the game. Is it
I
good?
can see your point. Yeah. Well, yes, it is. I know you two were really hoping that it would be a complete turd because of the amount of money I spent on it.
Well,
because you're a bunch
yes
of
and
sadists.
No, just because you'd backed it to such a ridiculous level without having really gotten any idea about what the actual game was like.
Well, it turns out that I am quite prophetic, and my gamble paid off because it is bloody awesome. At least I think so.
So what's good about it?
It's brutally difficult. I mean, it is it makes Mansions of Madness look like a walk in the park. It is really, really tough. But it is not really anything like Mansions of Madness. The only things it has in common are that it's Lovecraftian. It has a tiled board layout, like Mansions, in almost basically the same size tiles. And it has a lot of dice and some really nice miniatures.
And it's punishingly difficult.
Other than that, the mechanics are very, very different. So it's more like a dungeon crawler. So if anyone's played something like Descent or not so much Gloomhaven, but something like that, then it's more along those lines.
I've not played Zombicide, but my understanding is it's similar in mechanics to Zombicide.
I've heard that too, and I've not played Zombicide either.
I played this with you a couple of weeks back, and I remember saying it reminds me of something, and I didn't remember until a week or so later. There's something about the game that reminded me of A Last Night on Earth.
Oh, yes, the Flying Frog.
It had the whole, you've got miniatures, you're moving them, you've got a scenario, you've got to get to somewhere, and it was the whole search for items kind of thing. Now, that formula has been copied so many times, like Zombicide is probably the the most famous example at the moment of miniatures, kill bad guys, collect loot kind of thing.
Sure.
But for some reason, it was Last Night on Earth that kind of stuck in my mind as the game it reminded me of.
Okay, interesting. No, I've not played that, but I'd like to. So the idea of this is, I mean, this is one of the things I really like about it, is that it has an overarching story where each scenario that you play is a chapter in that story. So you play it episodically, chapter by chapter. I mean, you can play them one at a time as standalone scenarios. It's entirely up to you. But if you play through the game, you obviously get a flavour of the story. There's huge paragraphs of text and stuff that you can read through. It's very atmospheric. So it really, really nails the theme, the atmosphere, the feeling of the facility. So you set the game up, and I won't lie to you, setting the game up can be a bit of a chore. It is quite faffy and is very involved, because there's a lot of counters, a lot of tokens. You've got to decide which enemies you want to face, because there's two types. There's like the regular bad guys, and then there's the epic monsters that are horrific, I might add. I mean, beautiful miniatures, but by God, the mechanics of them are punishing, to say the least. You picked poorly when we played, Steve. By God, that was horrible. Monster that just turns up and brutalises everybody on the map, although I think we played it wrong, but never mind.
I thought it seemed very much on theme with the rest of the game.
It really was, but my God, that was tough. But anyway, so there's lots and lots of miniatures. As the other two have alluded, I went all in. So I've got it and all of its Kickstarter exclusives, 2 expansions, and so on and so forth. And I'm so glad I did.
Balls Deep Madness.
Balls Deep Madness, yes. But the object of the game varies depending on the scenario, which is another thing I really like about it. So you're not actually just playing the same thing over and over again. A bit like Mansions of Madness, depending on the scenario you play, you're either playing a murder mystery or a proper investigation, or you're doing a bit of a question thing, or you're wandering around, just a batshit crazy house and weird stuff happens. So there's a very different, I would say different feel to the game, but a very different objective each time. So the first mission, for example, is really to just run through and turn on the oxygen generation system. The second one, which is the one that we played, Steve, is sort of basically run and try and turn the power on to a little train so you can actually escape the beasties. The one I'm about to play is you actually have to physically interact with the bad guys themselves, because they are linked to the big bad in the corner. You get a full map to start with. So unlike Mansions, you're not really exploring. You just kind of, the map, but the bad guys, they're relentless. They just keep coming and coming and coming. So at the start of each player's turn, a monster kind of takes their move. So instead of all of the investigators in Mansions taking all of their turns, then the monsters do their thing. It alternates player monster, player monster, player monster. So each type of monster activates after one of the players.
Like an initiative sort of thing.
Kind of, yes.
It's similar to the system in Imperial Assault, which is the Star Wars one, which is based on Descent. So that has but that's got an overlord player who controls the Imperials, but they have player moves, squad moves, player moves, villain squad moves. It's quite nice as well, and I quite like the way it cycles in Deep Madness.
Yes.
So what it does is it kind of shifts everyone along one. So after every round, it's a different it's not a different order that the players activate, but they're out of sync by one.
Yes.
So I can't think of the names of any of the bad guys, but for instance, if
Wisteria,
you activate...
quite like. Hysteria, you kept calling Wisteria because you're some kind of gardening enthusiast.
The Hysteria, for instance, if it activates after you on this round, then in the next round, it's going to activate after the next player. Because everything kind of moves in sync by one. It was quite a nice little system that meant you could predict when things were going to happen, so you knew, all right, we need to go kill that guy, that gribbly little monster, quickly because he's going to run in the room soon. But it also meant that you couldn't rely on that sequence every single round.
Yes, no, okay. It was very good like that, because, as Steve says, you can plan around it and use it to your advantage, but sometimes there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop the nearest monster running at you, brandishing a dessert fork, rubbing its tummy. So you're kind of just looking at it going, well, I'm screwed, aren't I?
No, you're forked. That was quite good.
Yeah, it's good. There's also a sort of a full game track that advances every turn, and most of the time that essentially what they call devours a room, so turns it from good to bad. And this is one of the niggles I had with the game, actually, is that the tiles are double-sided, but there's the same room on each side. It's just the artwork differs. So on the sort of the bad side of it, the sort of devoured side, it looks a bit like, do you remember the Upside Down from Stranger Things?
Yep.
it's kind of like that, where everything's just kind of gone to ratchet, essentially. There's a lot more dead bodies, there's a lot more red around, and it just doesn't look quite as nice. The problem is, when you do that, the game says you're supposed to turn over the tile and everything on it, which is fine if there's not much on the tile, but after a couple of turns into the game, there is going to be something on the tile. Probably quite a few miniatures, a few tokens, a few bits and bobs like that, which means that you've got to take all of this stuff off this tile, turn the tile over, and put all the stuff back on again. So it just kind of breaks the flow a bit. So it's a bit annoying. Why they couldn't have just like a massive token or an indicator or something just to say, this tile's knackered, I don't know. But anyway.
You did have that, though, and I know they were Kickstarter exclusives, but I assume there's tokens for them. But every time you turned a tile over to the devoured side, you'd also put the spawn token on the tile.
Yeah, so you could just do that.
Yeah, in the Kickstarter exclusive, it was like a little bunch of tentacles, like, sprouting out of the ground. So it was immediately obvious which tiles had been devoured, because all you're really interested in was where this token was anyway, because it's where the monsters turned up.
Yes, it's true. You could just house rule and go, we're not going to turn it over, it's too much hassle.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
So it was a nice visual indicator, though, because it showed you just how bad things are going to shit every turn, because as the board slowly turns from this like sci-fi submersible base into red,
pretty much,
just blood and guts and horror.
Yeah, it's very effective artwork, but yes, I think it's slightly unnecessary. But I mean, in terms of turn flow, essentially everybody, like in Mansions, you get an investigator, you've got sanity and hit points, health, and every investigator has kind of like a special ability or a special skill, and they can do things like that.
However, sanity is very, very different.
Yes, it is.
Every other game I've played.
Yes. It's almost like a commodity rather than a thing to be feared. I really like the mechanic, actually. And it took me, like you, because I think when you played it, Steve, you still had the Mansions of Madness Arkham mindset about sanity in it. And I had that the first couple of times I played until I kind of twigged that basically the idea is that every investigator has a sanity limit, like all the other Arkham games. However, when you hit your sanity limit, you don't go mad. What happens is you can use sanity as a almost like an extendable ability. So usually you can kind of basically just spend a sanity and say reroll a die, or you can trigger an effect if it's part of your ability, or you can add an extra die to an attack or something like that, depending on what the characters can do, up to the limit of your sanity, which is great. And nothing happens if you hit your limit. However, when you kill something, if you have sanity tokens, they become madness tokens. So insanity becomes madness. And if you hit a certain limit...
Sanity becomes madness.
Yes. Well, yes.
Not
okay.
insanity.
Yes. Yeah, because you kind of expend sanity, so you've got less sanity, I suppose. But yes, you basically turn sanity into madness. And if you get 3 madness tokens, you lose those madness tokens, but you draw a madness card, which is almost always, in fact, it is always bad. But it's not game breaking. It's something like, everyone will get a hit point, or you'll drop an item or something like that. It's not crippling. It's not like in Mansions where if you go insane, it really, really has a major effect on the game. So you get into this lovely situation where you can start spending sanity to help you out, and then the sanity gets turned into madness, so you can spend more sanity again. As long as you don't get too much madness, you're okay.
What was the game we played not long ago? And by not long ago, I probably mean like in the last 6 to 9 months, where you could make things like dark pacts and other bits and pieces.
That's Eldritch Horror.
Eldritch Horror. So it sounds a lot like those sorts of mechanics in Eldritch Horror, where it's all fine until it turns to the dark side of the card.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of, like, that's more of a kind of a one-off thing. Like, you can take a dark pact to do such and such, gain some money, and then later on you've got to hope that that pact doesn't actually bloody flip over. This is more like, as I said, using it like a resource. It's like a resource management. You're using your sanity to go, well, I'm going to push the envelope a bit here. I'm going to try and spend more sanity to try and kill this monster by re-rolling dice and things like that.
But then when you do it enough, it turns over and you get bad stuff.
Only if you spent enough to beget madness in the first place.
So is it's not just cumulative over time. It's like if you do enough in a certain burst, then, or
it is cumulative.
But it's more like a resource. If you want to blow all your resources, you're going to get madness. But it's like, I'll survive. So I'm taking that gamble of, have I re-rolled enough dice to kill this monster that's going to bite my face off? Oh, I have. but now I'm going to have a madness card that's going to come and hit me later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that different to the Dark Pacts, where it's like, I need this extra thing, but I'm probably going to pay for it later. I'm sure it'll be fine later. Oh,
it
shit,
is,
it's
but I
not
suppose
fine.
in a shorter time scale. But you can keep doing it. So basically, once your sanity's gone to madness, you can spend your sanity again. But you can also take a rest action to get rid of all your sanity tokens.
Okay, yeah. That's definitely different then. But
So I quite like that, actually. But once you get out of the mindset of the standard Arkham stuff, it becomes a lot more useful. And I'm just basically spending sanity, something fierce. Whereas when I played against Steve and Adam was utterly reluctant to spend any sanity at all. Because he thought it would be really bad. I said, no, just keep going. It's fine. Crack on.
Yeah.
These two were just looking at me going, are you stupid? No! Re-roll the dice, because believe me, you're going to need to.
are you mad?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the game covers 1 to 6 players, so you can play it on your own, and I've played it mostly on my own, but I've played with others as well, as we've said. So, and the game balances that by allowing the investigators more actions if there are fewer investigators on the board. So there's always 18 actions taken on the investigator side against whatever the monsters do. So there's a reasonable balance there. I still think it's actually harder with 6 investigators compared to 4 because you can do more on a single investigator's turn because they get more actions if there's fewer of them. Then you can kind of get to places quicker in a way because you can do the usual sort of move, attack, search, dig out new kit. But if you can spend all 5 actions moving from A to B, then you can get there a lot quicker in the single player game, for example, than you could with 6 players, for example, because they could only get maybe halfway. And in that time, a Gribbly could run along and just sort of punch him in the face or whatever. But there's another mindset that you need to change, is that in mansions and a lot of the Arkham things, it's in your interests to basically try and keep the monsters away because they are obviously bad and they get in the way. Whereas in Deep Madness, they're more of an inconvenience than anything else. Because you can simply run past them. They don't pin you unless there's loads of them.
To give a kind of a reference to what we said earlier, the first scenario in Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, the cultist monsters actually speed up the end of the game. There's a point when you have to go out and start killing and removing these cultist monsters from the board, otherwise they're going to speed up the game.
Yep.
So they're actually like the cause of your death, whereas in Deep Madness, they're more like speed bumps. They're more things that will slow you down,
yes,
but they won't stop you.
Very much so, yes.
Which is, as you said, a mindset you've got to get into, because your first thought is, no, I need to kill everything that's running towards me. As you said, Brandon, because you can Thork and rubbing its tummy. But in reality, what you need to do is run past it and just push it out the way.
Pretty much, yeah, because there just are not enough actions in the game if you want to complete the mission as well, to basically just stand there mowing down bad guys. Because Steve did a quick calculation when we played and said, there aren't enough actions to complete this. Fortunately, he was wrong and can't do maths, but it does make the point that it is on a knife edge. It really, really is.
Yeah.
If a couple of dice rolls go the wrong way, and frequently they do, you're screwed. But there's also another horrible mechanic in there that, like Pandemic, when you run out of cubes, if you run out of monsters to spawn, you also lose. Because essentially it's effectively an overrun. So the place just gets completely overrun, swamped with monsters.
We had a board full of miniatures, and we were actually looking and going, there's only 3 monster miniatures left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We need to kill something just to replenish that supply, so we don't lose the game that way. And then we lost the game because we all died horribly anyway, so it didn't matter.
Yes.
So there is some small incentive to kill at least a few monsters.
Oh, yes, very much so, yes.
Yeah, it's more like management. It's one of these cooperative games where it's all about understanding where to manage things correctly.
Exactly.
What's the priority for the next 2 turns? Oh, everything.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, what you really need to do is give one guy a very big rapid-fire weapon, park him at the end of a corridor and just tell him to go nuts, while everybody else gets on with sorting out the mission.
Sounds fair.
Yes, until you run into monsters that can teleport, or latch onto you, or move monsters around the board. That's annoying. They even have a few monsters that are played in horror films. Do you remember The Grudge? You two have never seen The Grudge horror film.
Which one's The Grudge? Remind me.
It's the one with the very pale dark-haired young lady who sort of walks around in the dark screaming and kind of latches herself onto you.
I've seen both versions of this film.
Yes. The Japanese one and the American
Yes.
one. And the Japanese one is really, really, really terrifying.
It's really, really terrifying. It's really, really weird. And it means that the American version completely misses the point.
Yes, it does. Yes. As a lot of American remakes of things do.
I don't want to go into... because it's right spoilers, it's right at the end. But basically, it's like the American version finishes a minute before the Japanese version
that's
finishes.
the one. Yeah, the ending changes it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Completely changes everything, yes.
But the grudge is in this. And so it's basically just this... wizened young woman lying on the floor. And if you go anywhere near her, she basically just attaches herself like a limpet and will not let go. So you're basically trying to shoot yourself to get rid of her. She doesn't actually do any serious damage other than the single attack. So if you move into the line of sight, that's you. It'll just run at you relentlessly. So you got to sort of coordinate your moves to kind of eke yourself around it. Tiptoe, tiptoe. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, crap, we're screwed. It's just spawned. There's others that like basically just pin movement, or they just spread and over and just basically swamp the map with various effects. So anyway, there's lots and lots of things that goes on, but basically, I mean, I love it. I think it's a fantastic game, but it is not for the faint-hearted. And if you don't like games where you are likely to lose, then well, it's probably not going to be for you.
It's fair enough.
My view of this is I really enjoyed it. It was fun. As you said, it was bloody difficult, and it was firefighting, and I really did enjoy it. But I didn't find the game particularly original. As I said, I could point to various things. It felt like Zombicide remixed with the Arkham Horror games, with maybe a little couple of tweaks. Now you can say that about a lot of games, that they this from this game, that from that game, and similarity. And for me, I wouldn't add it to my collection.
It's fair enough.
Part of the reason is because Andy's got it. He's got everything for it.
And it was a lot of money.
The main reason I think is it does several things that several other games in my collection already do.
It's fair enough.
And there are going to be people who might play this and just go, well, I've got Zombicide over there, which has got all this in there, kind of thing. So I would say with that respect of it, just be wary that it's very similar to a lot of other games.
You're not the only person to say that. I mean, there's been a few people who have played Zombicide and this and said it's basically Zombicide with a few twists. So if you've got both, and I don't, thankfully, so I've got this, not Zombicide, so I'm happy with this. Because it seems to do everything I like in a board game. It's brutally hard. It's got manageable dice. It's got a lovely overarching story, of which you are part of. Yeah, and it has sexy-ass miniatures as well.
That's Deep Madness. And I believe the Kickstarter for the expansion is online now, is it?
It is, yes. I may have backed that already.
When does that end, do you know?
Around about the 20th, I think, of this month of November. So there's about a week or so, 2 weeks.
She'll have about a week. You'll have about a week then, by the time I finish editing this.
Yes. But it is a second print of it as well. So if you missed it the first time, you can back the full game as well. They've actually organised it sensibly this time compared to the first version of it. So there's kind of different pledge levels now rather than the original, which was a bit more messy. But and then you can just go for the expansion as well. So
am I right in also thinking that they've said this isn't coming to retail?
Yes.
It's only ever going to be sold direct through them?
Yes. They are probably going to sell various expansions and stuff while stock lasts at things like conventions and stuff, so you can pick up bits and bobs. But the original intention was to sell it in the shops, but they have since made the decision that it is financially unviable to sell it in the shops for whatever reason. So it is, to all intents and purposes, a Kickstarter exclusive.
How much was it again?
I paid around about $300.
That's why it's not economical to...
Yeah, well, you can... I mean, the base box was $100. Plenty in that to keep you going for ages. So you don't have to go as nuts as I did. But, yeah.
That is quite common. It's starting to become quite common in the miniatures games, because Monolith did that with Conan. They actually released it into retail, and then basically turned around and said it was a horrible experience releasing it into retail. The price which it would sell at retail, we can't produce it for that price. Basically, they said that because of all the miniatures in it, the margins were all screwed up.
Yeah.
So they made the decision that they will never be bringing anything else out into retail. So if you want to buy the Crawling Core, which is the Deep Madness core box, and it's just the core game on the current Kickstarter, that's $75, which is about £57.
There you go. And to be honest, the core box on its own is actually pretty damn good. Pretty good value. There's a lot of miniatures in it. There's a lot in the box. That's all the map tiles, all that sort of jazz. So that's definitely worth it. You probably get the...
That's much more affordable.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Based on what we played, I think you could happily stick with just the base box and you'd easily have 10 to 12 games if you just played for that basic scenario booklet.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
You'd have a good 20 hours a game out of that, I reckon.
Oh, at least, possibly closer to 30, actually, because I think each scenario takes 2 to 3 hours, including setup and playing around. The 2 expansions that come kind of with the Kickstarter project on its own literally just add more beasties and a few more investigators, so it just gives you a bit more variety in what you're facing. There are a few extra missions in there as well, but the real sort of additional mechanics and meat comes from the 2 major expansions, which are the Oracle's Betrayal, which is kind of the sequel, the continuation of the story, and there's the Rise of Dagon, which is almost like a prequel, which essentially explains how the base got screwed up in the first place, and the fact that Dagon had something to do with it is no great surprise at all.
All in pledge is $359.
There you go. Yeah.
That's everything for Deep Madness.
Yeah, that's including the new expansion as well.
£57. I am actually tempted by that core box.
It's very nice. For the price, it's very, very good value. There's a lot in that
Sure,
box.
you said only minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what you mean. I did not record this conversation. You have no record that said this.
It's getting cut, is it?
But it's true. I mean, for the base box on its own, it's great value.
All I've done is click the project saved button. I've clicked that little heart. That's all I've done.
For now.
I'm not adding this to my collection. I don't need it. Click. He's trying to get it under the radar. Don't worry. Don't worry, John. Kickstarter will grass him up to me. It's all right.
Well, I'm looking at a big sign at the top here. It does say, Andy is a backer.
There you go, you see. Kickstarter keeps no secrets.
So that was Deep Madness. As I said, it's currently available on Kickstarter for the second printing. We rather liked it, actually.
There you see. It's very good fun.
I need to play it.
You do. I think you'll really enjoy it, John. I really do.
So, speaking of games that some of us have played and some of us haven't.
Dun, dun, dun. Has John played a game?
John's played a game. Woo!
Hooray!
Yay!
And there was some rejoicing. So we played Monolith Arena, Steve and I, and my buddy Gav.
We did indeed.
And I think it's fair to say we rather enjoyed it.
Now, this is Hiroshima Hex 4, isn't it? Or 3, or whatever it is. The next
Mark
generation.
2. Or I think... Yeah, the next generation, yes. The Hiroshima Hex remix.
Gotcha. Yeah. By, DJ Dave Pierce?
No. If you've never played Hiroshima Hex, it's basically a tile-laying game where you take it in turns to pick 3 tiles, chuck one of them away, and then place 2 of them or play 2 of them. And they tend to be things like you've either got like melee attacks that attack the tile next to the one that you placed, or long-range attacks that can attack things further across this little board. You've each got a base, and the idea is you've got to do more damage to your opponent than your opponent does to you. And if you run out of tiles, or if one of you reaches 0 from a certain point that you start from, the other person wins. Simples. Except there's these initiative things. So every tile's got a little initiative marker on it that says, basically, the higher the initiative, the sooner it goes when a battle kicks off. Which sounds okay, except that you start lining things up, like, I'll put my thing next to his base, and that thing's got an initiative of 1. So when initiative round 1 goes, he's going to attack the base, and then the bases are all 0, so it will attack him back and kill him, but at least I've done him some damage, so it's all good. So units are expendable. But then the other player puts a long-range thing pointed at his back, and that thing's an initiative 2, which means that Initiative 2 goes before Initiative 1, which means the unit you've placed originally is now going to die. So you're like, aha, well, that's useless. So then you place an Initiative 3 to point at the Initiative 2 to point at the Initiative 1. And you end up with these great big webs of those sorts of things. And there's loads of extra stuff like special units that will net a unit, so they basically become ineffective until you destroy the netter. Things that increase initiative, things that increase the number of attacks, that kind of stuff. That's the basic idea of Neuroshima Hex. And I became somewhat obsessed with that game when I first played it. Steve and I used to play it a lot. I played the online version a lot. So, what's different in Monolith Arena? Well, it's at its heart, it's pretty much the same game.
Yep.
But it's got some monoliths. So when we first played it with my buddy Gav, who's never played Neuroshima Hex, we played without the monolith side of things. And it did feel just like Neuroshima Hex with a couple of little adjustments. So the factions have got some extra abilities. For example, my faction had the ability to charge, which is quite nice.
Which is bloody awesome, actually.
It was a lot of fun. So normally you have to wait until a battle kicks off and then everyone goes in turn. This army has a charge thing, so they've basically got cavalry. And so you can move your units around the board, but if you get what would normally be a battle token, you can instead charge a unit, which means that it runs one square, hits whatever it's going to hit, and does the damage straight away. So he gets to do damage outside of the normal phase.
Ooh.
And it gets to move as well, which not everything can move, because normally you're placing the hexagon, that's why the original was called Neuroshima Hex. These tiles are hexagons, so you're placing them on this little hex grid, and most of them stay there in exactly that position once you've placed them.
Yeah.
So there's this careful balance of where you place those units to protect and to attack. But said, then Jon gets bloody cavalry, which just gallops all over the board, smacking everything and changing it every turn.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Gav's faction had units that could do the same sort of thing, but rather than charging and hitting stuff out of turn, they could teleport at any one time. So you think you got this thing perfectly cornered, and then it would just whip. It's over the other side of the map doing damage over there. You're like, shit, now I've got to work out a new tactic to go and take care of that thing in phase. It needs to be Initiative 3, so I need a thing next to it to boost it initiative to... This one could be Initiative 3 if I boosted it from Initiative 2 with a boosty thing. Oh, no, but that thing's been netted over there. Oh, no!
It definitely sounds like Neuroshima.
I was playing the elf faction, and my major thing was basically assassins.
Yes.
So every other unit in the game has got melee attacks and ranged attacks, so you have to line them up. So melee attacks have to be next to each other, ranged attacks have to be in kind of a line. Well, the assassins just basically work anywhere on the board. You just choose when it comes to your initiative. Oh, damage that one. Oh, damage that one. So that was basically meant the entire game was trying to place those in places where they were completely out of the way of everyone else.
Yep.
Nice.
And hopefully everyone would forget they were there.
So that's the base game. However, this is Monolith Arena, not Neuroshima Hex, and you get monoliths. Monoliths basically consist of 3 little tile holders, and on the third level you put your base, and in the bottom 2 you secretly place 2 of your tiles that you pick.
Ooh.
And at some point in the game, you can decide, rather than after you've picked your tiles that you're going to decide what you're going to do with, you chuck one away, and then you can either deploy your monolith, or you can keep hold of those tiles, maybe play orders if you've got them. You can't place any units, but you can deploy your monolith instead. And what that does is basically your base tile, the other 2 chunks of the monolith drop out the bottom, and they shuffle. So the first one shuffles out to a tile next to the original base, and then the last one goes another space out. So suddenly you go from having one base tile to tink, 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 a couple of extra bits.
Surprise, cockfags!
Yeah, and you can organise it however you want it to face, all of those elements, which means... So I thought what would be really cool when I did this, and I misunderstood the rules, is I'd have a +1 to initiative and the cavalry unit, and then he could charge out, go and do some damage, get back in, because when a battle kicks off, all the monuments chunk, 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 recombine. So it turns out if something's on the monolith, it can't move off, which is difficult when you're a cavalry unit. That's the best thing that you can do with it.
It's basically a
Captain
horse tied to a stable.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is fine as long as it can charge in a circle around the banner.
Yes.
That'll be all right.
It could have charged, it could have moved, but it had to maintain contact with the banner, which is the name of the base in Monolith Arena. So it had to maintain that contact at all times. I really like these monoliths because they added such an extra layer of depth to the game.
Yeah.
Because you had to choose when to unpack them, basically, and then if you were not careful, if you couldn't unpack both of the little tokens, you couldn't unpack them. So the rule said you had to have 2 spaces to put these in. So if you're really crafty, you can just swarm the enemy base, so you can't remove these units again. The other one was if you killed a unit that was held in the monolith, you could actually place one of your own units inside it.
So you can end up with enemy units inside your monolith.
Ooh! Could they damage it from within then?
No.
Well, they can't. Well, no, but what it meant is that then the other player had to think very carefully about whether they wanted to unpack their monolith, because the player who controlled the monolith could choose where that token went, but the player who owned the token inside could choose which direction it pointed.
Oh, nice.
Could do some really nasty things.
Oh, now that's quite cool.
The other thing you could do, which we didn't get a chance to do, but if you found that one of the other guys had a really powerful unit, you could, as another player, push the powerful unit into someone else's empty monolith, so that outside of the battle, once it's kicked off, like that unit's out of the way now. Not going to deal with that until they unpack it again.
That sounds really cool.
So it added.
I would like to play this.
It added lots of really cool ideas. It's such a simple idea to add all this extra depth to what was already in Monolith Arena, basically.
In Neuroshima Hex.
Neuroshima Hex, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
And the thing the worth pointing out, actually, because if you're a fan of Neuroshima Hex, go and buy Monolith Arena. Because these factions in it, you mentioned the cavalry, which people may notice, these are completely new factions. They're not just the factions from Neuroshima Hex with different artwork. They're completely new factions with completely new rules. So in a way, it almost feels like an expansion to Neuroshima Hex as well, because it's another set of things you can do with it.
Almost like an expandalone.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say that, yeah. Just like Neuroshima Hex as well, I can see expansions coming out in the future. I can see expansions at the wazoo, more factions to add into that
8
game.
8-level monoliths.
You need a really big board to expand them.
Is it as close packed as Neuroshima Hex? Because obviously the playing space, when you put tiles down in that, was aggressively small, obviously for good reason, because it needs to kick off a fight.
Yes.
So is it similarly
exactly the same?
Yeah, exactly the same. In fact, I would say that it's worth pointing out that Neuroshima Hex had the option of being a bigger board if you didn't want it quite as aggressive. Whereas Monolith Arena only has the small ring, the small arena to play in. So yes, it's always aggressive. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool. That's good.
There's also some really nice component upgrades. So there's nice components anyway. The artwork's lovely throughout. For once, Portal have written a really good rule book. They've got a bad rep lately for their rule books. But one of the things they have done is there's lots of little tokens for the initiatives. So the initiative appears as a little coloured shield. So not only they're numbered, but they're colour coded. And when you played Neuroshima Hex, you had to remember to count the upgrades to initiative. So, if an initiative 3 unit had a +1 initiative buff next to it, it'd now be initiative 4. But you had to try and remember when you came to combat, okay, that buff is affecting him and giving it that. Now you've got these little cardboard shields that go over the existing initiative number and show you the new number. So it's a really, really simple little component upgrade, but it makes the combat so much easier to kind of work out when things kick off.
It does, but also there was at least one opportunity where we forgot to take the tile off after the buff had been removed, so it can work the other way as well. But definitely when you're counting up, it does mean that you're much less likely to miss the fact that, oh crap, that's on 3, which means that would have fired before that one, which means that one didn't die, which means that, wait, where did we get to? Which way was he facing? You're much less likely to do that.
Ah, cool. Damn, I see. I suppose the good thing is I can't buy this, or rather, I shouldn't buy it. I'll just have to play your copies instead.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, no, Laura has played Neuroshima Hex, and as much as I love it, she really didn't like it because it was just too aggressive for her. So I'll just have to play against you guys instead. Never mind.
Always feels like a game of chess to me.
Yes. Chess with more
Because
bits.
because you're thinking about like the orders that things are going to go in.
It's really good as well. We touched on something when we played it at the weekend because Gav, I imagine Gav doesn't play too many board games we played it with. And I think Neuroshima Hex at first can feel like a difficult game to teach because it's not like any other board game I own. Yeah, we were saying about Deep Madness earlier. We were saying it's like Zombicide, and you've played like one Arkham Horror game, you can get the concepts of the other. But Neuroshima Hex and Monolith Arena are unique in what they are. There's no other games I've got which are like this.
No,
but
that's true.
Fair point, actually, because I'm trying to think about other games I've got, and it's not. You're right. It's really, really on its own.
Which is bizarre these days, because, the amount of times we say, we did the Essen episode, and we're looking at games going, well, that looks like A, that looks like B, Whereas this is completely its own thing. But at the same time, although the basic concepts can be a little bit interesting to explain, the basic gist of the game is pick 3 cards, discard 1, place them on the board. Here's the basics. But as you play the game, you're revealing these new units. And it's like, I'm not going to explain what the units do until you've picked one. And then all these extra rules, because every unit's different, I'm going to explain the rules to that unit when it becomes important. So it's actually a really good game to teach because you can drip feed the rules as and when required. It's really quite cool in that regard.
Oh, that's good. So, so it's easy to learn, whereas, most of the stuff I play is... right! Oh, we got an hour, because that's how long it's going to take to explain the rules. Can we not just learn it as we go along, Andy? No, because you need to know all of this stuff before you can play. Oh, and then everyone just goes glazed over, so definitely a point in its favour.
Yeah,
so
I liked it.
That's
really
Monolith Arena.
Excellent.
I highly recommend it. I have a funny feeling we'll be mentioning this game again soon because we're close to the end of the year. I think it's going to be in Game of the Year. In fact, I think all 3 games we've mentioned today are going to be Game of the Year contenders.
I would agree with that. And even a game I've not mentioned.
Well, that could be anything, Candy.
It could be anything, but it's on the show notes. Every bugger and his dog has mentioned it.
Would you like
I'm not going to mention it.
Don't leave the listeners in suspense.
Or even the suspenders. I was going to talk about Brarse. Every time, seriously. But I think every bugger and his dog has mentioned Brarse by now. So, or just suffice to say that I've played it. I think it's just the subtle way you get in there, John.
One day it's going to sink in, and you're going to get it right every time.
No, look. It's set in Lancashire, and I've got a Lancashire accent. I'm saying it proper. You take your soft southern fairy ways and off. When I play the Birmingham one, then you can interject. Brarse, yes. All right.
It's Brarse, it's lovely.
Fancy game of Brarse. But yes, I've been playing Brarse as well. Really enjoyed that. So that is potentially... I think it's probably going to be high up on a lot of people's Game of the Year lists.
Yeah.
Is the old Brarse.
I played that with you a couple of weeks back, didn't I? And I'm actually really keen to play that game again. Mainly because you beat me, and it's one of those games that you beat me, and I went away from it thinking, yeah, we'd like to play that. And an hour later, I'm like, what did I do wrong? I need to do this next time. I need to do that next time. This is the strategy I need to win.
Just get used to it, Steve. I'll beat you every time. That's not true at all. I know it's not. But speaking of which, I owe you a rematch on not Imperial Assault, on Star Wars Rebellion. I've still to beat you on that. And every single time it's come down to the last goddamn move of the game.
It's what we call tense, that.
It is. So tense, it's like a campsite.
I had to play Brarse as well.
You do, John.
At some point.
Yes, Brarse is... It looks complicated, but it isn't. I think that's one of its beauties.
It's weird, isn't it? Because when you're explaining it, you're absorbing this information, you're going, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? This is unnecessarily complicated. Then 2 turns into the game, it's like, oh, no, this is really straightforward. Why did I think this was difficult?
It really is. It is. It's just that there's like 3 concepts. Play card to do action, make sure you're in range of coal, and iron you can just pick up whenever you want. Job done.
Sounds easy.
It is. It really, really is. Roxley have done a really good job in upgrading it.
Have you played Brass Birmingham yet, then?
No, I haven't.
Beer in it, apparently.
Yes, it does. There are a couple of additional mechanics I am aware of. I couldn't tell you what they are. There's a couple of other bits and bobs as well. But apparently, I've heard that anyone who's played Lancashire will probably prefer Lancashire to Birmingham. But anyone who's not played Lancashire will and played Birmingham first and then goes back to Lancashire will prefer Birmingham, apparently.
Okay.
But I'll give them a go and see what they're like. What it's like. We have some questions. We need to have a rummage around in Steve's bulging sack again.
I'd rather you didn't.
It's less bulging since we cut a few bits out of it.
Quite you.
Ooh!
But
Rory asks, we've already answered some of these questions before. Rory asks, a hot topic at the moment, as in it was in newspapers and everything.
Well, it was a hot topic when he asked it us about a month ago.
Wow, our finger is right on the pulse.
It's no worse than my newsfeed. Anyway, so he asks, how do you deal with board game burnout?
Drugs.
So Rory is talking about a specific thing that was in the newspaper, and this was actually a conversation about streamers and YouTube stars, and particularly interviewed and made reference to Matt Lees, who is from Shut Up and Sit Down. But he also had his own video game YouTube channel called Cool Ghosts. And he found he had a bit of a kind of wobble or nervous breakdown because he found he was working too hard to try and maintain the stream, basically. And it was all about how, this article that was in newspapers was all about how, like, content creators, especially those involved in YouTube and streaming, are under pressure to constantly make content. And gave an example. I don't know the name of the guy, but there was a Twitch streamer who went on holiday for a weekend. I think he went to a wedding or something like that. So took 3 days off from his Twitch stream and lost 25% of his subscribers in 3 days. Because he took 3 days off.
As in, they never tuned in again.
As in on the Thursday, he was at 100%. He came back on Monday, he'd lost 25%. I don't know whether they all climbed back, but basically, he was a person making money off Patreon people and funds and advertising funds, and he basically lost this massive swathe of income over 3 days because he didn't stream for 3 days.
That's insane.
And so it wasn't really board. I know Rory's asked a question about board game burnout, but he was talking about the media creators burnout. As for board game burnout, I'm not having that. I mean, apart from it's burning from my wallet, but I'm still a cardboard junkie, and will just play it
Exactly.
I will play it every available opportunity I can. Unfortunately, that does mean playing 221B Baker Street.
I think next time we shall play the game of life.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, I'm kidding. It's all right. I'm just giving that to a charity shop. Whoa. And I have to say, I'm actually playing more games now than I have done in the last sort of 12 months or so, somehow. I mean, obviously, they're not the last sort of 7 days or so. Maybe 2 weeks, I've played a little bit less. Yeah, D&D has increased as well, but even at weekends and stuff, I'm playing a lot more, so... not burning out yet, but then again, we don't create enough content, anywhere near as much content as a lot of these big people. I mean, when you say you're not created stuff for 3 days, Jesus, if we create something every 3 weeks, we're doing well.
I've tried to do things to try and ease the kind of load. I've got better at editing the podcast. So editing the podcast used to take, on some of the longer ones, it takes 7 or 8 hours, maybe even like 12, 15 hours of just tweaking and editing these. So I've got a little less anal about what I edit in, what I edit out, and what I keep in. So I take a bit more relaxed attitude. We've tried to keep the podcast episode length shorter, so I've got less I actually need to edit.
We're doing well tonight then, aren't we? An hour and 40 in.
Also, our audio quality has gradually improved over time, which I would imagine helps to some extent.
Yeah, and I think what we've done is we've constantly improved so that it's slightly less work. Like, we talk about the show notes. We've got show notes now, which we never had before. So there's a little bit of prep beforehand goes a long way. It's that whole kind of...
That 5 minutes means everything.
Well, it does. It's surprising what 5 minutes of just going through something before we start talking makes the difference. There are a couple of times, I must admit, especially with the kind of website side of it, because, polyhedroncladder.com, where we're writing reviews, I've been tempted to throw in the towel several times. Bizarrely, I've not been tempted to throw in the towel with a podcast. I've always enjoyed doing the podcast.
No, that's because you get to drink beer doing that.
He says drinking squash.
Ages ago, like probably maybe a year ago, I remember walking through Croom with you, Steve, and we were talking about reviewing games and things like that. And you were saying, so I've got loads of games that you're reviewing. Like, how many do you want to take to go and take, to play and do some reviews? And I was like, I don't know how to say this exactly, but I have next to no interest in just taking a load of board games, sitting down, learning them, trying to do reviews, like written reviews, just on my own as a thing. I enjoy doing the podcast because it's us talking about stuff that we've played, that we've done naturally. But just to sit down and write a review, I'm much less interested in. And I think that's, like, for me, if I was just writing reviews all the time, I would burn out quickly doing that. I know I would. It's
the only thing we've managed. In fact, it's bizarre Rory asked this question because Rory's now writing reviews for us as well. Is when I could write more reviews based on how much free time I had based on my old job. And I was playing a few more games. Now I'm finding that I've got less time to write reviews, or I'm taking more time on writing the reviews. That it's helpful that Andy's now writing reviews, Rory's now writing reviews. So I don't have to feel like I've got to produce a review every week. Still sometimes feel like I've got to try and play two new games. If I can try and play 2 new games a month, that means we've got new stuff for the podcast, which is still a bit of, bizarrely, is still a bit of pressure. But
yeah,
it does mean that you're then, whenever we get together, we will always try and play at least one new game. Whereas you could sit down and go like, right, there are these great games that we've got, like Gloomhaven and other long-standing Pandemic 2 Pandemic Legacy, like those sorts of things where it's like long playing games we just haven't had a chance to actually finish off. Yeah,
we really need to finish that off, actually.
Yeah, we do.
One afternoon, just get through it.
Oh my god,
John won't get through it. So Phil the Sheep asks, when you record the podcast, are you still remembering that I could be listening to it in the shower?
We are now.
I'd almost forgotten about that.
I'd gone through therapy to forget that, and now you've just brought it all back. Thanks, Phil.
Oh, no, I'm picturing it. Move on quickly.
Okay, right,
Phil's
quick.
hairy
no!
back. I said back.
So, Ryan
Nethercutt
asks 2 questions. First question he asks is, will we ever be increasing the amount of shows we record per month? Which, funnily enough, is related to the last question. I think at the moment 2 episodes a month is about the right balance for us.
Yeah, I'd like to do one weekly, but we
haven't got the time.
A, we don't play enough games, and B, I just don't have enough time to do that.
No, it would be much shorter episodes a week, and I'd miss the odd week when I can't do, because I tend to do the editing on like a Friday night and a Saturday or Sunday morning. If I went away for the weekend, had some kind of engagement the weekend, I wouldn't be able to edit the podcast and get it out. So yeah, I can't commit to that. Ryan's second question is quite interesting. He asks, he's working on game design and wants our opinions on minis over 3D cardboard props and environment pieces. He says he's thinking of maybe making a 3D board game environment with nice cardboard walls, trees, and other such things, and then meeples, as opposed to making highly detailed minis and a flat board. I'd like to know what our opinion of this is.
Oh my god. I mean, I like the idea of a sort of 3-dimensional board. But I mean, you're bordering. Well, I'm not. You're not the only one who can do shit jokes, John.
Good.
But I mean, other than the cost of it, if you're starting to essentially make terrain, you're bordering on tabletop battle games, Warhammer and all that sort of jazz.
No, I think that's a poor analogy. I think the analogy to consider here is something like Deep Madness, which is highly detailed miniatures on a flat board with tokens, versus Gloomhaven, which has got cardboard standees. Or
no, it's the walls and the environment and all that sort of jazz.
I'm thinking of something. My interpretation of his description is think of something like how HeroQuest looked
No,
Right,
he's
okay.
saying a 3D game board environment with nice cardboard walls suggests that
trees.
there is walls sticking up
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
the board.
Okay.
So you know that sort of 3D terrain you can buy on Kickstarter, like the 3D printed stuff that looks really amazing, and the sort of stuff you can get for D&D, and you can see some people. There's examples online of people like covered an entire table of this stuff. It looks fantastic, but by Christ, it is just cripplingly expensive.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's a British company because they're always at UK Games Expo, and it's all folded
them.
cardboard, isn't it? Yeah. They've done a sci-fi one and a fantasy
Dwarf
one.
Forge or
No, it's called Battle Systems or something like that. Because Dwarf Forge is the American one. I think it's called Battle System. It's all folded cardboard, so it's all printed cardboard folded. And the idea is, yes, it's mainly for miniatures games, but I think they've made it so you can like adapt it for things like Space Hulk and things like that. It looks absolutely stunning, even though it is just folded cardboard.
It's not what I was thinking of, but similar idea. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Basically, you've got this 3-dimensional terrain, basically, which I don't know. I mean, you couldn't have that without having minis, though. I think because you've got something that's 3D. I mean, it would seem a bit silly to have 3-dimensional environment and a bunch of tokens, or maybe standees, when you've got this wonderful terrain.
Do you know what? It depends, Ryan, on what the game is.
I was going to say that.
I would entirely agree.
Because
Generally speaking, I would say unless the game needs you to have 3D walls, though, and that sort of stuff, they're more likely to get in the way and take a long time to put together and all the rest of it. Unless you found some clever system.
Agree.
I would say, generally speaking, a flat board with even just tokens, but possibly minis, whatever, even just meeples and other bits and pieces like that would definitely be better if it's less fiddly to actually play the game.
Yeah.
So the number one thing is make sure that the game plays right first. And then if you've got time after that, think about what you can do to prettify it, because I would always take a game that plays well over a game that looks, stunning but is boring.
Simon, sorry. Cough, really, really bad.
You've got
cough.
something in your throat there.
I have, yeah. Sorry. I'm probably picking up Steve's Ebola or whatever the hell he had. But yeah, no, I absolutely entirely agree, John. It's you want function over form more than anything else, and also you've got to consider the cost, because terrain is not cheap. And if you start producing a game that has an entry cost of £500, you're really limiting your market. You might get maybe 500 people backing it on Kickstarter, whereas if you make something that's really simple, you're going to get thousands.
That's how Cthulhu Wars always seem to do all right.
Shut up, you. There is always the demographic that will buy it. I guess it depends on what you're going for.
I think
it really does.
It really does depend on what the game is. I mean, without knowing details about what the game itself is going to be, I think it's going to depend. I've got to admit, I think Gleamhaven is an interesting example because I wish that the scenery in that was more 3D. Because you've got tables and chairs and the simple folded cardboard, some scenery for that, where I think would go a long way. And it's one of the things. Dark Souls is the perfect example, because Dark Souls, you've got these fantastic miniatures, and then you've got like barrels and gravestones, which is just a token, and you forget they're there most of the time. But what's really bloody annoying about that is there's supposed to be a bloody Kickstarter exclusive stretch goal of gravestones and bloody barrels, and we still haven't had them, and that game came out like 2 years ago.
And I'm slowly winding the handle in Steve's back on this one.
I would definitely say if you're going to add anything, don't go for walls, but add bits of scenery and that sort of stuff. If that adds to the feel of it, scenery on a flat board works better, in my opinion, than 3D walls.
Yes, I agree with that.
I would agree, because you've got to see what's going on with all the minis and where things are. You've got to walk around the table to see things, because walls basically block line of sight. Yeah, obviously, literally, but even as a player, you want to be able to see what's going on, and the walls will just get in the way of that, I think.
Also, in my experience, those sorts of things, anything that holds the board kind of captive is something that you can catch your fingers on. And then once you've knocked one chunk of it and it's knocked every counter that's attached to it,
Oh God, yeah.
There's a lot of swearing that goes on when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fair. No, wise man Cage speaks the truth.
Have my moments.
Right then, folks, I believe that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. Don't forget to give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. If you want to chat to us, we are available on Twitter. Collectively, we are at PolyhedronC, but I can be got at Wahoffamadenga.
I can be found at Sonic H with a 0.
And I'm at John_Cage.
We can also be found on Facebook under Polyhedron Collider and on the Board Game Geek Guild 2726. We've also got our regular Twitch streaming of our D&D sessions on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider.
And if you want to find us on YouTube, it's youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider.
But for now, tatty bye and happy gaming.
Ta-ra!
Catch you later.